How many of you know this quote by show of hands? It's a little bit like, is the Albanian army going to take over the world? I don't think so. I'm surprised I didn't see more hands. That was Jeff Bewkes, then the CEO of Time Warner in 2010, sort of dismissing the threat of a rising Netflix. The headline of the article in the New York Times is actually even more rich. Time Warner views Netflix as a fading star. So this is kind of like in the Hall of Fame, right? Of an exhibit. It's exhibit A, really, of a incumbent massively underestimating the rise of a digital insurgent. Bewkes was like Mr. HBO. Now he's running the whole show. He's got the Turner Networks. He's got Warner Brothers, the top studio. Brilliant executive, completely misses it. So why am I showing you this quote in the context of giving a keynote around the elephant in the room? I keep hearing that term, the rise of YouTube on CTV. Is some version of this same dynamic playing out under our collective noses today in our business? Well, not exactly. We talk about YouTube every day. Now, this was said to me back in February by a senior executive at Roku. And it was around that time that I decided to give this talk. And since then, not a week goes by. Lately, it feels like not a day goes by that you don't see a story in the press around the rise of YouTube on CTV. So on the one hand, history is not repeating itself. In 2010, it's fair to say that TV and the movie business really had no concept of what Netflix was on the path to achieving. And today, the executives in our business, the press that covers, the analysts are paying pretty close attention to the rise of YouTube on CTV. That being said, I still don't think we fully get it. I don't think we're appreciating the trajectory that YouTube is on and the long-term implications for our business of that trajectory. And depending on where you sit in the ad-supported streaming business, how much more challenging things are going to be for all of us. So good morning, everybody. I'm Dave Bernath, the general manager of the Americas at Whirl. We power thousands of fast channels and deliver billions of hours of content all over the world every month, helping many folks in this room grow the business of free ad-supported streaming. It's great to be here in Denver at Stream TV. This is my favorite show of the year because it's so targeted, no pun intended. We're not on the margins of CES crammed in a hotel. This is our show, our people, and our industry. I'm speaking to you today really not as the GM of the Americas at Whirl, but really as a 25-plus year veteran of ad-supported television. We're going to look at some fresh data, which is always a good time. Talk about some ways in which YouTube could grow even stronger, and then what, if anything, you can do about it. So YouTube on CTV. Is it, as one industry veteran said to me, a benign cyst growing inside all platforms? Or if we're being a little more clear-eyed and frank about it, and this may sound a bit macabre or over the top, kind of a form of a parasite living inside of the platforms and the platforms of the hosts. YouTube lives inside these platforms. It derives nutrients from them, audience and monetization, at the expense of the platform. Other ad-supported apps like Pluto and Tubi and the SVODs with apps, these guys all have to share a little bit of their monetization with the host platforms. Not true with YouTube. Let's talk data. Some of this is public and likely familiar to many of you, but today I'll be also sharing some fresh data for the first time publicly from two of our partners, research partners, Digital Eye and TVision. Now, over the past year, as was mentioned, I think on the last panel, YouTube has solidified its position as the #1 streaming service in the US. And since we started with the Albanian army quote, let's just focus on Netflix for a moment. Whereas a year ago-ish, so March of 2024, YouTube had a small lead over Netflix. In the last year, that has grown to what we recently saw in April in the Nielsen Gauge, 12.4%. And that 12.4% is almost 29% of streaming. Or put another way, conservatively, 1 in 4 hours of streaming in the United States today is on YouTube. I just have to say that again. 1 in 4 hours of streaming in the United States today is on YouTube. And based on the current growth trends, within 2 years, that's going to be 1 in 3 hours. And almost more incredibly, YouTube has become number 1 in all of TV. And that's going up against the full portfolios. That's Disney, that's ABC, ESPN, Disney Plus, Hulu, Paramount, NBC Universal, cable networks, digital properties. YouTube's bigger than all of them. Not only this, being number 1 in all of TV, but a few months ago, YouTube told us that in the United States, TV is now the primary device for viewing of content. So they're number 1 in all of TV, and now TV is their number 1 consumption platform in the United States. Wow. And they've got everybody. Take a look at how closely these demo breaks align with the US population. In the last 2 years, the largest growing demo, according to YouTube, is 65 plus. Not to mention, when I look at this chart, I see this over-indexing tsunami of kids and how that behavior is going to flow through the demos. Now, our friends at Digital Eye, who track YouTube users in the United States, they concur, or they sort of confirm this point from YouTube, that TV is now the number 1 platform for consumption in the US. This is full year 2024. But what's fascinating is if you look a little bit deeper, it's the older viewers that are driving this growth. Look at the splits by demo break. And you roll that up on 35 plus. For 35 plus, 46% of them, TV is their primary consumption device for YouTube. Let's take a look at what are they watching. Is it how to patch my drywall or strengthen my core? Is it Dude Perfect or Dhar Mann or La La Land with ads? Well, lo and behold, 20% of it, 19, 1 in 5 video starts on CTV is YouTube Shorts. And if we take that 81% and break it out by content duration, your 1s, your 2 to 5, 6 to 10, and up from there, a little more than half of the content being watched is what we would call short form. So from a television perspective, we're not surprised, but like, wow, that's a lot of short form viewing and they're number 1 in all of TV. However, interestingly, from a YouTube perspective, the purple, the left side of that, the 49% that is sort of longer form, look at how that compares to their consumption on TV, on mobile and web. Huge move upwards in terms of duration of content on television. So how does this mix of short form, a lot of short form and long form on YouTube, equate to session time? Well, T-Vision breaks this out for us. So you've got a little over 40% people are watching under a half an hour in their session time on YouTube. Half of them are watching from half an hour to 3 hours. And then 9.4% are going 3 plus. So over half the sessions are longer than a half hour. I would call that like a TV session, classic TV session. And if you look at the rest of CTV, no surprise, you don't see as many short form sessions under a half hour. So this is like a data comparison that I'm going to be very curious to watch over time and see how the sessions on YouTube start to look more and more like television for regular viewers. So YouTube is number 1. Number 1. And the scary thing about this is that they've really done it, I would argue, without really trying. It'll be scary the day they actually focus on CTV. This was said to me by senior cable network executives. I talked to these folks from cable networks, platforms, and apps, and perhaps most importantly for today's presentation, people at the major studios whose job is to monetize content. All of them agree YouTube could be much bigger on CTV. And I want to be clear here, YouTube has leaned into CTV over the last year in a big way, but largely with new features and tools that benefit their creators. And we get that. That's where this incredible growth has come from to date. What I'm sort of focusing on today, though, is, and what informs a comment like this, or this one, is the extent to which they leaned more into premium content, movies, television shows, linear channels. So here are 4 paths that I see of how YouTube can do that. I'll be curious to see what they say in their presentation later today about CTV. Well, one is, let's start with the app itself. The movies and TV section is functional but it still operates on an infrastructure built for transactional viewing, TVOD, EST. And it feels that way. And yes, I did shoot this on my iPhone. There's no way for users to subscribe to a brand or a studio, major IP. The content owners tell us they get substantially less data from viewership here compared to their YouTube O&Os. And overall, it just doesn't match that premium level experience that you feel on like a Samsung TV Plus or Tubi, for example. They toyed around with adding a fast channel hub, and they haven't done that so far. Phew! But they should do it, and they should do it in the same look and feel of YouTube TV, which is an incredibly successful platform that we haven't even mentioned today. YouTube is already the ultimate free front porch for YouTube TV. This area of the app could really take that to the next level. More premium content. I am an agent for the participants, so until YouTube starts writing big checks in advance, they will be second tier. This was said to me by the head of sales at a major studio. YouTube does not pay upfront license fees or big fat MGs against rev share. So talk about low-hanging fruit. They have the audience, they have the money. It would be pretty easy for them to invest more heavily in premium content. Speaking of making money, monetization. They have only scratched the surface with advertising. This from a media buyer at a major holding company. And there are a number of facets to this basic observation. This same executive told me that although we've all read about some of the success stories where brands have worked with content creators to do integrations, that kind of advertising is still not widely accepted or embraced by the industry, but it will be. The days of YouTube playing kind of catch up with the third-party data implementations that TV buyers need to measure campaigns across platform, those are coming to an end rapidly. And I think at the macro level, we're all aware that the ad spend on streaming is not kept up with the eyeballs and the movement of the audience. So as that pendulum starts to pick up speed and swing, who's best positioned to pick up that growth? And I think emblematic of that shift of ad dollars to streaming is what I will preemptively call a watershed moment coming later this summer, week 1 of the new NFL season, September 5th, 8 o'clock, live from Brazil, no less, on a Friday night, Mahomes and the Chiefs taking on the Chargers on YouTube exclusively for free globally. Seismic is another word that comes to mind. And lastly, who they hire, executive talent. Exhibit 1 of that would be the sort of legally contested hiring of Justin Connolly from the Disney company. The kinds of television executives who know how to build major TV and brand, experiences and businesses. Okay, so how to respond. What can the streaming competition do? And I'm focused here really on ad-supported players, not the subscription services. So here are 2 aggressive moves that the platforms could take. The big gnarly one is for a platform to drop YouTube until it negotiates a new deal, giving them access to inventory or some kind of rev share. And maybe it's because I come from the cable TV business that this seems obvious to me. We all know the playbook. The operator or the programmer drops a bunch of channels. There's some bad press, a little bit of churn, some angry customers. It's damaging for a moment, but then a deal gets made, the channels get turned back on, and customers move on and forget. And while those negotiations can be contentious, each side is invested in each other's success. Not so here. And if I'm YouTube, actually, I make this deal. The television ecosystem works best when everyone in the supply chain has a piece of the action. Now, another sort of, not as confrontational, but somewhat aggressive approach would be for platforms to monetize around the YouTube app. Now, what do I mean when I say this? Well, imagine if every 8 to 10 minutes while someone's watching YouTube, there's a squeeze back to allow an L-bar display ad to run for the platform for 15 seconds. Overlays, full frame wrapping, even picture-in-picture would all be on the table, really. And even though this might not be the greatest consumer experience, it would give the platforms a chance to get some kind of monetization. All right, so those were two sort of fighting words, you know. One's kind of a haymaker, one's a bit of a jab, or nuclear and conventional, whatever you want to call it. But let's pivot to what platforms and apps can do, and I would put them into the category of YouTube inspiration. Lessons learned that everyone could be implementing today to try to engage audiences more. The first one, the word we're hearing a lot, is increased personalization, however you can do it. And it's obvious, right? YouTube's deeply personal experience just ports directly to the television. And so the question for the rest of us is, how wise should it be, or how might we increase registration or try to force profile creation? Particularly in an environment where on the free side, making the experience frictionless for the user has been a foundational approach. Is there some level of churn or short-term pain that would be worth it on the other side? And if not, find other ways to increase personalization. Your UX reacting in real time to what viewers are watching so that you know what to serve up people, or other ways to be more personalized with recommendations or even feed-like experience that are personalized. Speaking of that, embrace short form. Find out a way to embrace short form. Even though YouTube has a lot of long form and it's growing, obviously short form is a massive part of their success. Figure out an approach to short form that works for you. Could be anything. Something like this. Short form helps you with personalization. Find out what works for you and give it a shot. Now, speaking of short form, you can't compete with YouTube directly, right? You can't boil the ocean, as they say. But are there niches or verticals where you can lean in and super serve your audience? Digital eye data shows us that there are some big traditional categories, like sports and news, that still are a relatively modest percentage of video starts on YouTube, on CTV. So there's time for you to lean into categories and areas and super serve them. We heard Adam from Tubi talk about the power of how big a niche can be. You've got time to do this, so figure out what can work for you and lean into it. And lastly, lean into YouTube itself. Now, while Netflix may grit their teeth a little bit with each release of the Nielsen gauge that shows YouTube climbing, they are also, I would argue, one of the most successful media companies that use YouTube. They have over 30 million subscribers. They've posted over 8,000 videos. I was having a drink recently with a streaming GM of a content company that's got a full portfolio, fast channels, AVOD, SVOD. And this person told me that this year they've been putting more full episodes on YouTube, and YouTube is their fastest growing platform. So you've got to use YouTube to promote your content experiences, your brand. This is a yes and proposition. So find out a way for you to be on YouTube in as big a way as possible. Now, I started with the Albanian quote from this article, but I got to tell you, reading the article is actually more instructive for this moment than the quote we've often heard. And it demonstrates a media worldview, executives, analysts, that is completely unprepared for the transformations that are coming to our business. There's all these little gems in there, like cord cutting is just a Wall Street narrative, or the major studios believing they can throttle Netflix with their pricing power, or that TV everywhere will be the solution to unlock all of streaming. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I encourage you to read it. And the lesson is very clear, which is that the future of media will be much different than we realize today. Our analog brains normally fail to see forward these exponential future states. And so the opportunity, the necessity really, is for how we choose to respond to this moment by adapting the lessons we can learn from YouTube's success and making choices on our platforms and our apps. Those choices that we make, your choices really, I think, are going to determine to the extent to which we can keep up or you're going to fall behind. When Neil says YouTube is the new television, this is not some pithy upfront jargon. This is the truth. All right, I'll see you at the bar at happy hour. Thank you very much.